Oh shit! All right, let's go.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Supernatural Beer Bros podcast. I'm your host, Andy, and I'm joined today by Ben down San Diego way.
Howdy ho.
And joining us, special guest today, Ben's buddy, Mills.
So,
So how was this past week for you guys?
Actually, pretty great. We went to a huge parade, kind of a big draw in this region. People come from all over, and it was fantastic. My tiny humans really enjoyed it. It was their first big parade in a long time, and yeah, we had a blast. Strolled over to the local American Legion. Well, I said I was just looking around, quote unquote, and snuck a few drinks, and then came back. So,
How about you, Mills? How was your week?
well, this past week was for my squadron busy. Well, for me personally, it was busy because Air Wing Fallon. If y'all don't know what that is, it's where we send half of our aircraft up to Fallon, Nevada, just so start blowing stuff up in the desert up there to get ready for deployment.
What was the name of this place? Phallus, Nevada?
Fallon. Fallon. Phallus. Yeah.
also known as the desert.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry if I sound a little phallic there at the end, but but yeah, like most of the squadron's gone. So the past, I think it was Thursday and Friday, and the next couple of weeks should be pretty easy and chill and laid back, and we're working less hours because we're just a stay back crew. And then I'm checking out of the command and then going on vacation. Excellent.
Yeah. So today we're talking about a very special man in history.
One of the best.
Man. One of the best. One of the most savage warriors ever to be described
You're simply the best
in the history books.
This beat made out of 100% rat ass.
His name was Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah.
Or Vlad Tepe.
Yep.
Or Vlad the Third. What was it? 1430s he was born? 1431-ish?
Well, if you don't have the link up, I have it up.
I got stuff. I just
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, they don't really know because again, that part of the world is extremely even in the 15th century is extremely mystical.
Okay, so he was born somewhere between 1428 and 1431. They don't know.
Yeah. Unknown. He has an unknown first wife. I guess she didn't matter. And then lucky enough, he did have only surprisingly for that time period, he only had one child. So that's a little bizarre, honestly, given the time frame. But yeah, so you're right. As we were discussing earlier, I mean, technically he is Vlad Dracul, but he is the second son of Vlad Dracul, who became the ruler of Wallachia in 1436. And that's a name a lot of people aren't going to know today because it's one of those old names which is out of use. But it's basically now Romania. So yeah, he's but Vlad the Impaler, as he is known, just a brief, I know we're going to touch base on the history, but he's sort of a national hero to Romanians, Hungarians, Transylvanians, and that sort of soup smell.
I mean, given his life experience, he lived to a ripe old age of 55 when he was finally beheaded in battle. So they had to wait till he was over the hill before they could rip his head off in battle.
To take him down, yeah. Yeah, and he was in some major fights too, especially.
And what year was this?
It was in the mid 15th century, so 14.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I don't really know much about Romania's history beyond Vlad Ceausescu.
His real reign of terror started in about 1456 when he gained the throne for the second time.
Yeah, I feel like those were the medieval / Victorian days where a lot of people were just suppressed and oppressed, and there was like savage shit going on. Like it doesn't matter where you lived,
He must be a
even in
king.
England.
He must
It
be a
didn't matter
king. How
where
do you
you
know?
lived. I mean, in the United States, we had that shit going on back then. And it's just crazy how like barbaric we fucking used to be. Like, you know?
Yeah, but you got to admit though, it was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. I'm sure that everyone in charge had so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, he did. There were fights between. I mean, he actually had sort of a long experience. I mean, he was kind of from an early age because he had negative experiences with the Ottoman Empire. That's who his primary opponents were in his life. So he was actually held as hostages in the court of the Ottoman Sultan from in 1442 to secure his father's loyalty.
Yeah, it was him. It was him and his brother.
Yep, Radu. So yeah, him and his brother Radu, not Ragu the sauce, but Radu. Yeah, and that was really common. Like, I think a pretty good example, if people need one, is the recent Barbarians miniseries about the Germans versus the Romans. That showed that in detail of taking the sons of like chieftains or lords to gain and maintain their trust. That was such a common practice, which is probably stupid on their part at the same time, because then they trained Vlad and his brother Radu in Ottoman combat. Like they were trained they saw how they fought. They saw their tactics, and that's just stupid if you think about it. Because then it's like at any point that person could just turn on you, and now he knows how your boys fight.
Yeah, but did you know that Mr. Vlad here got training by the Ottomans in science, philosophy, and warfare while he was hostage over there?
Well, that doesn't surprise me because look, he's the son of a lord, so he's going to get better treatment than like.
Yeah, but who's in the habit of training their hostages in battle tactics?
Well, look, I mean, because the idea is, I mean, I'm not a scholar on Ottoman tactics, but the idea is, I guess, hey, we've conquered your country. Now it's a district of our empire. I will make you the lord of this district of our empire. You're going to maintain this district for the sake of our sultan.
You're the man with the doctorate in this town, so yeah, you're it.
Exactly.
That kind of was their strategy. Like, who's the smartest man here? Whose man are you? Who is your lord?
We don't got a lord.
Yeah. So, I guess in 1448, Vlad's father and brother were killed, deposing his family from the throne. But the person that took the throne, I think, was Vlad's cousin. So, like an uncle or something? An uncle's son? Cousin? Yep. I guess that would make sense, wouldn't it? That's what a cousin is.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the history of that area. I mean, you have like multiple power struggles. I mean, because it sounds like he was on and off the throne a few times.
Which is rare.
So anyway, when Vlad got word of this, that's when he embarked upon his first in a long series of campaigns to regain his father's seat. His opponents included the Boyars as well as his younger brother, who was the Ottoman Sultan.
Boyars were basically the lords of the region. And they were like the tribal lords. They had various like fiefs, and they formed the backbone of the aristocracy.
So anyway, he won and gained the throne in 1448, but he was quickly deposed after only 2 months.
That was quick. That's what she said.
Oh yeah.
What happened?
In and out, like a duck mating.
Or a rabbit hunting.
It's weird because he actually sought refuge in the Ottoman Empire after he was deposed after his brief reign. So that's crazy.
Yep. So it was during this time that he's responsible for killing 80,000 people and impaling up to 20,000 of them. When he
I don't know
gained his
about
own back.
like this piece of action from back then, but it reminds me of like pre-World War II, the rape of Nanking, like when the Japanese attacked the Chinese. Like it sounds like they're just slaughtering people left and right, like just, you know, endlessly, like without cause or anything like that.
Well, most
It's
of the-
crazy. Like that happened when you guys are talking about what happened in like the 1500s. This was happening in the 1900s, and like we still don't seem to have evolved over that time. And that makes us think. It makes me think about like, you know, this was like less than 100 years ago,
well, yeah, the
and
rape,
people did that shit that recently.
the rape
it's
of Nanking
crazy.
was a little different scenario though, because
It was a different scenario. Yeah, I get it. It was a different, you know, motive.
well, the
But,
mass bloodshed was in Nanking was caused by the invaders, where the mass bloodshed in Vlad the Impaler's situation, he was defending most of the time.
Right. It still produced the same results, but it was a different motive. Yeah, I get it. Like it reminds me of that. You know, it wasn't the same exact thing, but
I mean,
it feels like the same scale of destruction and murder and shit. You know, I just didn't know about what you guys were talking about, but it reminded me of what, you know, this shit was. You know, it was just as horrible.
Yeah, absolutely bloody people. Yeah, so he also did that. He also did that to his not just against the Ottomans then, but against the people who overthrew him originally.
Yeah, the Boers. You know, it's funny. He had his little plot where he pretty much once he got the throne, he knew that these people were plotting against him again, right? So he invites them to a feast. Okay, so once he gets them there and pretty much ambushes them at the feast, stabs them all to death, impales them, and then, according to legend, cooks and eats their flesh while some of them are still alive on the spikes, watching him eat them.
Oh man!
And he was dipping his bread in their.
And who was this?
Vlad.
Okay, this was Vlad. Who like
he was
grilled people and like they ate them in front of them while they're watching them.
Yep.
Oh my!
And he was dipping.
Okay, I take back what I said about the rape of Nanking. That's got nothing on this. Like, that is so goddamn horrible. they just like in the rape of Nanking, they just like flat out killed people. That's fine, right? You know, whatever to them. But you know, like cutting someone's fucking leg off while they're burning at the stake, and you're chowing down on their fucking, on their freaking, calf muscle in front of them while they're watching you do it. Like,
hey man, can you pass me another hunk of Fred over there? It's kind of tasty.
Yo man, let me get some of that thigh meat.
Hey.
Yeah, exactly.
Sitting there snapping his fingers.
Cut off their fucking their leg at the knee, and it's like a giant turkey leg.
He's over there. Servant. Carve me another piece of bacon off his back.
They probably had a fucking guy doing that too. Like,
he's like, carve me another piece of bacon off his back.
Yeah, exactly. And he's watching you eat him. Like, that is goddamn ridiculous. Dude, I did not know that.
Cannibalism is not as rare as
I thought that only existed in Africa.
Oh no. Damn near every culture has done it at one point or another.
I heard that about the Donner Party and all that, but I mean, Donner Party too.
But then again, though, too, almost every culture has their myths about cannibals and what happens to eat human flesh, i.e., the Wendigo, or some other shit like that, where you turn into some fucking ravenous emaciated spirit that just can't stop eating other people. Yeah.
True stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I guess he, like, on top of eating his eating the people that he had on spits, he was dipping his bread in their blood. Got to sop it up a little bit. A little too dry.
You have to dip it in something.
Little too dry. That bread is dry.
What would they have back then in the 1500s, by the way? Like, they didn't have sauce, they didn't have ketchup, you know, like, was it blood?
They had spices. They
Yeah, I know. Like,
from
mix some
India,
blood with
Middle
some
East and shit
salt
like
and
that.
stuff that they imported from the Dutch East India Trading Company. Like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they had too much in the way of sauces though, condiments and shit.
Yeah,
Might have.
probably the blood of
sure
another
what they got with
animal.
that. Yeah, I don't think so. And blood is remarkably unhealthy for you to drink, so
Oh, they didn't
Yeah, I
know
mean,
that.
stomach can't handle it. Plus, it's too salty; it'll dehydrate you.
So yeah, real quick, because like the Dracul, yeah, you're right, comes from the father, because his father was inducted into what's called the Order of the Dragon, which was created by Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund for the defense of Christian Europe against the Ottoman Empire. So that Dracul comes from Latin, which is basically dragon. But yeah, so it seems like he didn't get like this bloodthirsty madness until after getting his revenge upon reclaiming the throne in 1456. So something happened for like that 1448 to 1456 time period that made him an absolute horrifying monster.
Savage.
There
He was a savage.
was a firefight. Friggin'
I know, shocking.
but
Hey, you know what? This is an actual recording of him. Okay. When he was asked to explain why he did the things he did. All right, here it is.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
oh man. So I think
that was
to
kind of
start,
spot on right there.
so where we start seeing Vlad's Vlad the knight, the warrior. Well, and quickly to talk about some of his battles, because he was famous for his military prowess, and some might even say, I mean, look, psychological warfare existed for numerous millennia, I mean, in various fashions. He just, I don't know, maybe he had a comprehension of it, maybe he specialized in it. But like, for example, the Ottoman Sultan, so the Ottoman Empire is based now in what's just modern day Turkey. That's where it emerged from. So the Ottomans were on a war path for like 5 centuries of conquest. And most of their conquest fell on Eastern Europe, where some of my family is from. I mean, my family fought the Ottomans probably at various points over the centuries. So the Ottomans, which was an Islamic caliphate, and of course they have the Sultan at the head. The Sultan would actually join his army on these conquests. So he just wasn't, mad respect. He actually accompanied his armies, not just staying in his little palace in what's now Istanbul, but then Constantinople. So his
Constantinople.
Constantine the cock novel. But yeah, so his attacks eventually fell onto this area of Eastern Europe, so where it's like Romania, Hungary, Transylvania. Of course, Transylvania is sort of central to the vampire legend. Wallachia, as it was called then, which was its own independent principality at the time. So he found himself gaining prestige and accolades across Europe for his combat against the Ottomans. And at one point, he led a very famous night attack. It's well known in history as this like night attack at Targoviste, I believe it's pronounced. Targoviste being the capital of his country. And his troops.
That was where Ceausescu was captured.
Yeah, there you go. So a little weird connection to history there.
Mm.
I mean, Vlad to Ceausescu, and So yeah, he almost killed the Ottoman Sultan in this night attack. He barely escaped with his life. I believe he killed his vizier, which was basically his second in command, burned thousands of tents, killed thousands of troops. As his army, most famously, and what he's most remembered for, because every year at Halloween, a lot of people put up a meme showing a painting of Vlad, Vlad the Impaler, and it says Vlad Dracul, reigning Halloween yard decoration champion. Because as his forces were retreating from the Ottomans, he killed and impaled probably upwards of 20,000 captured Ottoman soldiers, and he basically left a forest of Turks for them to walk through. And that's just a complete psychological mind fuck right there, to see someone you probably fought with 2 days ago, fought alongside, now he's impaled on a stake.
Yeah, you wanna hear a letter he wrote to one of his allies following one of these battles against the Ottomans?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, he said, quote, "I have killed peasants, men and women, old and young, who lived at, what is that, Ablusica and Novoselo, where the Danube flows into the sea. We killed 23,884 Turks, without counting those whom we burned in homes, or the Turks whose heads were cut by our soldiers. Thus, Your Highness, you must know that I have broken the peace."
I mean, so that apparently gravely sickened the Ottoman Sultan and obviously many of his troops, because it ultimately wasn't the Ottoman. He was actually intercepted and captured by Hungarians, who, again, they're supposed to be Christian allies, but again, all these people fought each other until the Ottomans came. Then they fought the Ottomans, but then they went back to fighting each other. But it was that time frame, 1456 onward, where you get, Vlad the Impaler, the brutal Dracula.
Well, here it is. Impalement was no doubt Vlad the Impaler's murder method of choice. During impalement, a wooden or metal pole would be jabbed through the body, starting either in the rectum or vagina, and would then slowly pierce through the body until it came out the victim's mouth, shoulders, or neck. Sometimes the hole was rounded, or the pole was rounded, so that it wouldn't go through the body, or it would go through the body without puncturing any internal organs, prolonging the victim's torture. In these particularly gruesome cases, it could take hours or even days for the victim to die, often on public display for everyone to watch. In one case, he impaled the Saxon merchants on Kronstadt, or in Kronstadt, whatever,
Okay.
who were once allied with the Boyars, that were his family's killers.
Yeah, so he was killing people who betrayed his family.
Yeah.
That method of torture that results in execution is goddamn horrible. You mentioned it, sometimes it was in shape, like the spike they'd shove up their ass. But what if it was square or star shaped? How much more would that fuck you up internally? And then all that shit comes out your mouth. People gathered around to watch this shit back then, and they enjoyed it. That's the problem. This was entertainment for people back then.
Well, I mean, look, man,
I can't believe we used to be this way, dude.
Dude, we're only 3 minutes away from returning to that kind of thing. It's the separation, the separation of us from behaving that way again is not that far off. I can easily. It ain't far off. Look at the cartels in Mexico, for God's sakes.
The only thing stopping people in this country from behaving that way is the massive number of police officers we have in this country and the law.
What do you think about cops in this country, dude? I need to know, because I probably might have a similar opinion.
I mean, that's really the only thing stopping people from behaving this way, though.
No, I agree. Well, it's that, and still the appearance of a stable economy, the appearance.
Yeah, so but there's got to be a threat of force to deter force.
Right.
There has to be.
They
What I mean is, I mean,
are going to keep on doing what they're doing because my personal opinion, and you can disagree with me if you want, but like the for-profit prison system that this country has that like no other country has, like me and Ben and you too have been around the world on deployment. Like when I would go to other countries and I would like observe the cops over there, they are no way or shape or form like the cops we have here in the US. Like they're just like take a firefighter. They're hanging out in their station house. Like they're waiting for a call, like for something to go wrong. But the cops here, you know, they're like driving around and looking around and walking around like for people who they can fuck with. And then on top of that, we have the for-profit prisons.
There's a good reason for that, because I did a fair amount of that when I was in Iraq. It's called the presence patrol.
Right, exactly.
Presence keeps people in line.
I understand it keeps people. Cops are supposed to keep people in line. They're watching for people doing bad shit.
Well, I mean, but they don't even have to do anything. All they have to do is be visible. As long as they're visible and they can be seen, most people are going to behave themselves.
That dog is barking. Shoot it.
That's like, I get it, man. But like, I'm talking about what they're trained to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't agree with the fact that they have to drive around writing tickets all day and raising revenue.
Right, chicken shit tickets all the time, like trying to find people to fuck with, and like, oh, I pulled this guy over for running a stop sign. Oh, he is on parole. Let's put his ass back in jail and let's feed this fucking for-profit system we have. Like, that's what I don't like. Whatever. I don't care. That's my opinion. What's yours? That's the problem. That's the difference I see between us and them. Like those people in England, for example, are not fucked with all the time by the police officers over there.
Bobbies also don't have guns. They have like rape.
I know they have beat sticks and like, you know, they have an armed service component. You know, they do have MP5s and stuff like that, but it's not every one of them. But even go to like, I've been to Italy like 5 fucking times. Like those cops have machine guns and they still fuck with people.
Well, most of the Europeans though view us as uncouth savages anyway.
And I get that. That's, you know, that could be arguable. I get that. Yeah, we probably actually are.
We're not nearly.
We're probably unsavory assholes, but like
we're not nearly polite enough for them.
Oh, dude,
I'm most of the
hang on. You said we're not polite enough for them?
Yeah.
They are rude to each other, but they're also more courteous to each other at the same time. That's the fun. I've been to Europe like 7 times. Like, ooh, fuck you, Ben.
Fancy bitch.
Shit on what I'm trying to say. The culture I know is different. Like but that's how it's supposed to work. That's what we do. That's what they do. But I mean, Americans like tend to be like, you know, if you stack us up against like other countries in the world, we don't care about other people. That's the problem. We're not going to be sensitive or help someone else. You know?
But I disagree with that though, because we help people all the time.
We do help people all the time at the expense of the government.
The whole point
it doesn't make them like us.
The whole point of all that was to say is that we're not like, despite our mirages of modernity and stability and education and technology, like just because someone's playing a video game today doesn't mean tomorrow during an economic collapse he won't be shooting some grandmother for a loaf of bread.
You wait till people get hungry and watch how savage they can be.
So I mean, like it wasn't like, look, that's what, you know, we can look at even like Germany, where it's like that's one of the most cultured, civilized countries on the earth, the planet of the earth. And then after their defeat in 1918, you know, 20 years later, they're literally, they, in some cases, they were putting people on spikes or crucifying people or mass. Like, they weren't that far removed from their civility when they started pulling some Vlad Dracul shit. So that's what I mean. So like with people standing around, I mean, like some Turk hanging off a pole begging for his
Well,
life.
anyway, I mean, you got to be a damn
A
savage.
Turk hanging off a pole.
Well, you gotta be a damn savage to ram a telephone pole up somebody's asshole.
No, I was just
But
thinking,
that used to happen is what, you know.
what I was thinking about is it's too bad he didn't have like a mathematician on his campaigns. It's like, do you think we could shape this pole in the like a pentagon and see if that goes through his ass? How about a parallelogram?
Yeah.
They just do different mathematical shaped poles to try all the shapes.
What's your problem? You look like you got a stick up your ass.
I
So
love that. Like that reminds me of Ben's meme for like, what if the infidel is inside all of us?
I love that one.
I know that's your favorite one, dude.
So of course, Mr. Vlad eventually died in battle in 1476. Yeah, 1476, not against the Ottomans.
No wonder
but
the paintings look so fucking inaccurate.
Well, yeah, because it was mostly like nothing was accurate from that period.
I love paintings of human beings from those, like, you know, fucking centuries. Like it just looks so weird.
Well, usually, because you know the painters were trying to make them look prettier than they were, so they probably had scars and warts and other disgusting shit, and they just
disfigurements.
Hey, when you paint me, paint the blemishes and all.
Well, yeah, they wanted to be pretty, because he looks pretty with it, even with his stash. But so he was transformed from just a bloodthirsty Eastern European warlord into the ultimate evil, I guess below Satan, which is Dracula, which is into a vampire.
I see this shit that you're looking at. Everyone's impaled, but not through the asshole.
No,
I can see that.
Look at the text here. Trump wants a goth brutalist border wall with black spikes. No, really. Boing, boing, boing.
Oh, God.
Well, Trump is part Germanic, so that would make sense. Same here. So I
You
guess
know
that.
what? You're not wrong.
Yeah. So the actual
What is
transformation.
this red picture?
That's the forest of impalees.
Is that from the movie or?
Probably.
Yeah, that's from Bram Stoker's Dracula.
No one
1986.
photoshopped that. Like,
That's the one, and actually, because they started out the movie, you had Gary Oldman who played Dracula, and they showed him as the
was it
warrior.
Gary Oldman movie?
Yeah, Gary Oldman played Dracula. That was also with Keanu Reeves playing Jonathan.
It just looks so goddamn horrible. Like,
well, they were he was a 1,000-year-old vampire by the time Keanu Reeves meets him in 1890s Romania, and then then they make him a younger version of himself. He gained youth after he sucked blood out of victims, and that's where he seduced Winona Ryder. But now that you've shown that
before she shoplifted.
Yeah, before she shoplifted. So Bram Stoker was an actual journalist, an Irish novelist who created Dracula. Like we owe our thanks to Bram Stoker, who invented this titular villain in his 1897 Gothic horror novel, creating Count Dracula, the most famous vampire in the world. And then let's see.
Like in that movie, there was a movie, right?
Yeah. So
novel, right. So like the first chick like he abducted, and she was all like this. She was all.
Your hair is like animals.
Yeah, because that was kind of that time. I mean, and it's been made and adapted countless times. I mean, a pretty famous Dracula portrayal was Bela Lugosi, who is hat tip was a veteran of the First World War. But they were, you had a Nosferatu, of course, back in the day. So it's just been made countless times over countless decades.
Or like,
Yeah, so of course, this is where Bram Stoker took it. The Count is an aristocrat who resides in a decaying castle in Transylvania.
like this isn't the first time I've heard you say Veratu, and every time you say it, I think of Army of Darkness.
Oh, Bruce
Where,
Campbell.
yeah, where he's all
When I was underway, dude, like
he's all
I
trying
was
to
watching.
he's all trying to remember the words to say when he removes the book from the pedestal. Clato Verata. Like,
That part right there,
he's
that was so funny. The best part of it, do you remember when like he was crawling through the graveyard and all those like skeleton hands were grabbing him? You
oh
know,
yeah, one reaches
and
down
like
his throat.
one of them sticks in his throat, like, but he's like, and like he slowly gets up, and then one of them grabs his nutsack.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So,
then
yeah.
yeah.
I'm like, where did that come from? But then, like, you know, and then they smack him in the face, you know, left and right, and like he tries to do this, and they do that.
So yeah, the Dracula we have come to all know. Are you guys hearing me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah,
So
you're
yeah,
good.
I mean the Dracula we've come to know and love was created by Bram Stoker. He is immortal, possesses the strength of 20 or more men, and he can shapeshift as well as count bats and wolves. His weaknesses include, as we all know, fear of the cross and exposure to sunlight, which is lethal to the Count. So obviously most menacingly, and this is where Vlad the Impaler comes in. Dracula feeds on the blood of the living for sustenance, and he also has the power to turn immortals into vampires. So basically, who began the cycle by turning Dracula into a vampire? Stoker never covered that process about how he himself became one. So he was just the kind of like, I guess, god of the vampires, so to speak. He was just there. He just was, I guess. Because obviously there's a lot of things which don't really apply to Vlad the Third, aka Dracula, the Impaler, the voivode of Wallachia and Transylvania. Bram Stoker, when creating Dracula, said his vampire's past life as a soldier, statesman, and alchemist. He had a mighty brain, a learning beyond compare. There was no branch of knowledge of his time that he did not essay, did not know. So, Dracula apparently was into alchemy. He wanted to turn base metals into gold.
Base metals into gold.
when he wasn't murdering.
Why would people ever think that was possible?
Because you don't have Netflix.
It was
back
old.
then.
I know, they were stupid. Yeah, I get it.
I don't know. I'd rather spend time with those people than many today.
All right, listen to this. Vlad the Impaler's appetite for violence often surpassed the bloodlust of his enemies. Sultan Mehmed II, notorious for his own atrocities, was aghast after seeing the decaying corpses of about 23,000 of his own men lined up on stakes for miles, some say as many as 60 miles, around the capital of Targaviste or something. Yeah, something like that. When he invaded Wallachia in 1462. And there's a quote from him. It says, how can we despoil of his estates a man who is not afraid to defend it by such means as these?
Yeah, I mean, it was they definitely had a lot of inspiration from Vlad Dracula himself, because I mean, look, you had a lot of other rulers in that age who were probably harsh, right? I mean, everybody was harsh to an extent in those days. I mean, you read any number of like even quick entries on this king or that king or this ruler, whoever, but like he was like at another level that not every king in that time period, impaled 20,000 people on stakes.
Well, I mean, on some level, you had to be a hard man to survive back then. I mean, but you didn't have to be as extreme as Vlad.
That's what I'm talking about. So that's why he was a pretty excellent source. Now, and so it was the 1992 movie that was actually Francis Ford Coppola. They kind of show how he becomes Dracula, because after, I don't know if anybody remembers the movie, but Winona Ryder plays his wife at the very beginning of the movie, in the medieval ages, because that's the thing, she gets reincarnated essentially, which is why he falls for her in 1897 London. But his Winona Ryder in the 1400s, when she thought her husband had died in battle, committed suicide. So when it turns out he was still alive, he came back to the castle where the monks and priests greeted him, and they informed him about his wife's death. And because she had committed suicide, Christians, especially back then, believed, well, you're automatically in hell. So that enraged him. He took a sword. It's actually a pretty creepy scene. Still kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. He's like freaking out and speaking Romanian or some shit, pretty harsh language. He's like, I renounce God, I renounce him, I embrace the forces of darkness, this and that. Stabs the cross at the altar, and blood starts pouring out. So he takes a chalice, catches the blood pouring from the crucifix, drinks it. That's his beginning as a vampire.
Yeah, and then then he's like, one of his buddies comes up to him, and he's all, sir, he's like, the vanguard of the Ottomans is here, and we're not ready. And he turns around and says,
Well, do it live. Fuck it. Do it live.
and that's when he impaled 20,000 of them. So we'll do it live. Fuck it.
Well, yeah, he did do it live. He did it live while they were watching him eat their thighs. So
Oh my God.
brutal son of a bitch.
Horrible. So horrible.
But that part of the world just lent itself, because look, the Ottomans were pretty horrific people themselves. Because they came from a very rustic, harsh Turkic tribe from what's called Anatolia. And that's kind of they emerged basically near Armenia, not the Carpathians. Basically.
That was the ship that rescued the Titanic survivors.
Yeah, Carpathia, that's right. Because the Carpathian Mountains, though, in that region where he's from.
Oh, Carpathia. I get you.
Then was it with the heart of it was like Istanbul, Turkey, right? So, Constantinople.
Now it is, because for most of the region's history, it was under Greek control, but then the Greeks and the Byzantines started giving way. And that's why they had been cut off for basically a few centuries, because Constantinople was like the ultimate walled city, especially with their Theodosian walls, which were virtually impenetrable. Of course, they had a large anchor chain, which they used at the what do they call it? The Horn? I think they call that part the Horn and the Bosphorus. But they would use this massive anchor chain to prevent naval assaults. And then, of course, on top of everything else, they use Greek fire, which, if I'm not mistaken, scientists still don't know how they made Greek fire.
They do not.
Oh, many people have tried to recreate.
It's like it's historic napalm with a chemical compound that we still have not figured out.
Pyromancer's piss.
Yeah, that. Yeah.
It's probably, since they were Greeks, it's probably just what is the base material used in tzatziki sauce today.
Oh, so, he says when you were talking about the walls being impenetrable, it reminded me of a line from Game of Thrones where they take Tyrion to the Eyrie, and he's looking up the top of that friggin' giant mountain, and the castle's sitting on top of it, and the lady there, what's her name? I forget her name. Anyway, she's all
whatever hot chick is in the movie.
He's like, I'm not scared of the Lannisters. This castle's impenetrable. He's like, my brother Jamie would disagree. He's like, these castle walls are inconvenient, not impenetrable.
Well, and that's, no offense, that's kind of a stupid location anyhow, because then you
But
just
they're
cut them
not
off
wrong.
and you're gonna starve to death.
Merely inconvenient. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's so the heartland of the Turks was what's now central Turkey. Istanbul held out, and actually, really, Istanbul was the last remaining city of the old Roman Empire. So now it is the heart of the Turkish country, because all the Greeks were basically kicked out of the city or killed or kicked out. But yes, because that's why Vlad Dracul found himself in that situation in the 1460s and onwards, because like the Ottomans were just on a constant campaign of conquest. I mean, my family lived in a pretty similar mountainous region of the Balkans where they never were fully conquered, because it's basically like it's like basically the Appalachians on drugs, on steroids, where it's like
Interesting
they
example.
literally they just rolled rocks on Turks and killed them trying to come up hills, and then they
Not
would
only that, but when you have all the spirits of the forest and the fairies,
We did that in the colonial days. You said the Appalachians.
Well, I'm just saying, like the Balkans, where they're from, is like the Appalachians on steroids. Like,
actually, we did
I
do
know,
the
but
colonial
it
days.
made me think about something funny that didn't happen.
There was a pretty savage crew of people there in West Virginia.
Really?
That's where some of my Balkan ancestors ended up going to was.
Yeah, because your family was savage as shit for sure. Like,
Well, again, you had to be, because these people, like some of these countries were under occupation for like 400 or 500 years, and they somehow didn't get exterminated because, I mean,
they fended for themselves.
Like Greece was under occupation for like 500 years. Same for many other countries. Some got out sooner, but so that what kind of engendered the whole brutality scene. Well, obviously, Vlad Dracul's brutality probably came from him getting revenge on the boyars, again, those lords who betrayed and killed his family. Which kind of, now that I think about it, it has a crazy similarity to Ivan the Terrible. The same thing happened to him a century later. Boyars killed his family and tried to depose him, maybe even kill him. He rose up, murdered like all of them, took their lands, and went on a killing spree himself.
Speaking of which, have you seen that show, The Northman?
Yeah, the movie. Yeah,
the movie.
I have not, but I'll watch it.
Oh yeah, it was a movie. I thought it was a show for some reason, a series. But
I mean, there's so many Viking series. So,
but yeah, his in that movie, the friggin', well, spoiler alert, this kid, he's a kid when the movie starts, and his uncle kills his father, kidnaps his mother, and then he runs away and ends up being a slave for a little while. Then he's adopted into whatever tribe had him enslaved. Then he's trained to be a warrior, and then he starts fighting for them. And I guess he's a berserker of some type.
yeah,
Berserker.
Yeah, a berserker. Like,
Dan, get back on the fucking. They said you're like. You said that like rape their victims or something like that.
No, they'd go into battle naked, dude. They'd go into battle naked with nothing but war paint.
I was trying to remember what Ben told me about how these fucking assholes like did their job. Like,
well, I mean, because they had like some, I mean, in Northman, they show them having like some animal ceremony where like they basically become one in the, one in spirit, and I guess, mindset with their spirit.
Well, they fancy themselves to be a pack of wolves.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I remember hearing stories years ago where like apparently the berserkers would like sodomize their defeated opponents.
You into the dirt.
Because they probably were just letting them know that they were taking away their manhood. So
oh my god, why would you go to that length to defend your manhood?
yeah, so here's kind of some more because I'm trying to find some history on other vampiric legends. But back to him. So his castle, because the castle is in the mountains of Romania or Wallachia, in this foggy area, and it looks spooky. It's what one would expect of Dracula's castle. So, it's like if you've seen pictures of the landscape, it's just super eerie looking, kind of creepy.
Actually, I had that picture up a little while ago.
Yeah.
Or is it right here? That's his castle right
I
there.
saw that. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a nice house.
Yeah.
Yeah, but take
That's
a peek at
exactly-
that. Tell me someone creepy doesn't live there.
But I mean, how much do they have to pay their fucking maids?
So
Oh.
yeah,
I'm not cleaning that fucking thing by myself.
I'm sure they had an army of servants in there to clean that place.
Yeah,
you
like
clean it,
10
you
or
get your
12.
At
and
least.
if you didn't clean it, you got your hands cut off. But yeah, so Dracula, the name itself, Bram Stoker, again, we're talking, this is Victorian era, was reading a book about Wallachia, and even though the book didn't mention Vlad the Third, Stoker was struck by the word Dracula. He wrote in his notes, in Wallachian language means devil. So that's another link to, I guess, him being linked with evil, because Dracula itself came to mean.
Is that an ancient version of being triggered?
Man, I'm telling you, dude, it's hotter than two mice fucking in a wool sock in this fucking place.
I agree. I do not. You're not wrong. It sounds right.
I hate the summertime in California, dude. It's so fucking hot.
You know where I like it, man? I like it up in the Pacific Northwest. It's super nice up there in the summer.
I never asked you, dude. How is the weather up there? Is good?
Come on in, boys. The water is fine.
I lived up I lived up in Washington State for a little bit, but it was like, I think I was there from September through January. So I wasn't there that long, but yeah, it was remarkably mild.
So the question, I don't know. So I think a question, and I'm sure Dracula hated hot weather too, which he melts in the sunlight, which is fun. But I'm trying to see. Are you aware of any other vampire legends besides him?
There's no Disney movies coming out yet, so I mean, I don't know.
Because I mean,
nothing really. You assholes didn't think that was a good joke. Fuck you.
I wasn't even paying attention, to be honest.
I don't care.
Apparently, legends of vampires have existed in other cultures, completely different cultures, like the Mesopotamians, Hebrews, ancient Greeks, Romans. Well, Romans had a tale of demonic entities.
The one thing about the Mesopotamians that I do respect is the Greek fire.
Oh, there's
that
always
happened
the blood
during
countess.
that time.
The blood countess in Hungary.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing I appreciate about naval or even any kind of war history is the Greek fire thing. And just simply because it was so destructive and we don't know how to recreate it.
So
Yeah.
I remember this because I listened to a podcast that did a whole episode on her. Elizabeth Bathory.
Yeah.
Hungary, 1560 to 1614.
Check this
Now,
out.
What happened, hold on. Let me share a screen real quick because I'm not even reading this.
Who is that?
The blood
We're about to
countess.
tell you.
Okay, so what happened was she married into I think she was of nobility prior, right?
Probably minor
Or-
nobility.
Maybe it was her husband that married up. I think her husband married up to her. But anyway,
She looks familiar.
she killed a kid and got the blood on her skin, right? And then she started to notice that as the blood was drying, her skin looked younger. So then she started to bathe in kids' blood. And all these kids around the neighborhood, like around the village, were going missing, and people were looking for their kids. And I don't remember exactly how many. It had to have been a few hundred of them. I think it was as many as 600 children went missing over the course of a few years. And they eventually pinned it on her. And what they did with her, they put her down in this dungeon in a corner and literally bricked her in. They built a brick wall around her and left just a little fucking slot to feed her. She died in there. She never got out.
Well,
Yeah,
if
I
you
mean-
murder children, shouldn't that happen to you anyway?
I'd have just killed her on the spot and been done with it.
Well,
I
I mean,
mean,
again, because she's royalty at the same time.
Immediately or slowly, yeah, you're still dying. You're right.
Yeah, she got special treatment because she was in a relatively influential marriage in a royal family. She had 8 children.
Yeah, but still, her happy ass is done. You know, one way or another,
Yeah.
one timeline or another.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I remember hearing about her. That's extremely horrifying.
No,
Now
they're,
I forget.
they're saying that she's probably the most prolific serial killer of all time.
Well, when you think about it, you had that time, probably had a lot of servants coming to the house, local peasants offering up their sons and daughters for service to any lord who would take them. Because again, they had like 7 or 8 kids themselves. It's like, we need to offload some of these brats. So it's like, please take them. I can't feed him anymore. Well, that's just what it was. It's like, we literally can't.
I
feed
know,
you.
it's just that's a funny word for it.
I mean, I don't think they had a lot of familial love back then, honestly. So yeah, I mean, you think about all these peasants sending their children to a house.
Peerage.
Might be hundreds, probably hundreds, just killed, just like that.
I think, like, if I remember right, when I was listening to this podcast, they said it was up. I think it was anywhere up to, I think it was between 400 and 600 kids she murdered.
Oh, God.
That's crazy.
I mean, look, there's apparently about her. Because
Adult
she
murder
also-
600 children.
She was an
I'm
epileptic.
reading.
I think it was women
waiting-
too. It wasn't just children. I think it was.
Yeah, you're scrolling. I'm trying to read it, but I'm also looking at it on this.
There ain't that
screen.
much on here about her.
Yeah, I'm looking at it on this screen.
Biting the flesh of victims and bathing in their blood as a beauty treatment.
Bathing in their blood. Holy hell.
Yep. And then here's Vlad Dracul. We've already Dracula. The Legend of Ka looks like Egypt. Egyptians also had their share of vampire lore and bloodsuckers. The
You guys broadcast the most horrible shit. Can I please be on your next podcast?
The Egyptian Book of the Dead.
Holy
If a certain part of the soul called the Ka didn't receive adequate offerings, it left the tomb to drink blood.
And that's the Egyptian stuff, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Egyptian god
So
blood.
fucking savage.
The Legend of Chiang Shi.
Excuse me.
In China, vampires had long hooked claws and red eyes. In Chinese vampire legends, they were known as Chiang Shi, which
Yeah, I
translates
know that
to
guy.
corpse hopper.
That guy delivered my food last night.
This guy?
That motherfucker put my gas in my car on my way over here.
Osama bin Laden.
Charlie Murphy.
Hey, each one of these on this
God
page
rest his
deserves an
soul.
episode.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, yeah, so it's interesting. So, I mean, you have, demons themselves who, in one form or another in various cultures extracted blood from victims for a variety of causes.
Blood was a serious thing. Like
Well, yeah,
it meant
blood was-
something to whatever you fucking thought about it. Blood was a thing.
Well, blood was considered your life force.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why people fuck with it in different ways. Like,
Dead from rising, evil spirits escaping. Wow. The Legend of the Rising Dead. The legend of the vampires of the plague. During the 16th century, it was believed that vampires fed off the bodies of plague victims and that female
Ew.
vampires spread the plague. Those suspected of being vampires were even burnt or buried with rocks or bricks wedged in their mouths. Here are some more creepy urban legends. Okay, so they would wedge rocks in these things' mouths so they couldn't come back and bite. Why didn't they just bust all their teeth out?
They'd probably eat them.
Yeah.
So in Africa, I mean, this just touches briefly on this. Various regions of Africa have folklore of beings with vampiric abilities. I'm going to skip ahead a few, brother, because this one's very funny. The Betsileo people of Madagascar tell of Romanga, an outlaw or living vampire who drinks the blood and eats the nail clippings of nobles.
No clippings.
Nail clippings.
They crunch like potato chips.
So yeah, like the fingernail clippers, like he does the thing first, and like
So that demon entity apparently has a foot fetish or something.
He's like, "What do you do?" Or George Carlin was talking about nail clippings one time. He's all, "What do you do when you first cut your toenails? You pick one up, you find the biggest one you can find, you pick it up, and you bend it for a while, don't you?" "Yeah, of course you do. You have to." "Why?"
George Carlin said that.
"Yeah," he said. "Why?" "Because you can." He's like, you.
I remember that. I was a big fan of him.
He's like, you gather them all up into a little pile, you put them in the ashtray. He's like, you go to get them in the morning, and you can't bend them in the morning; they're too dry. He's like, "Fuck that." He's like, "I don't need that shit."
You know something that you never see? You never see someone taking a shit running at full speed.
Here's something you'll never hear a man say.
Look that up on YouTube. Shit running at full speed. It's from like you know Bam Margera.
Oh yeah.
He made the the CKY videos.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So just Google fucking shit full speed. Like that's Rab himself doing it. And
I'm not sure I want to see that.
No, like you got blown up in the face. I mean, like
Think of the children.
I don't want to see someone running down the street taking a giant shit while he's running. Dude.
Put the music or whatever. Fine. Don't watch it if you don't want to.
So, like,
Think
Dracula,
about it. All right, call me back.
Dracula being like we have a certain image of him, courtesy of Bram Stoker. Sounds like a lot of other cultures, their vampiric legends were more so demons rather than like physical entities that so his is kind of unique because he's like a shapeshifter and he's also like an old soldier and a lord. So that's kind of the primary thing based off of our friend Vlad. But yeah, that's
So one of the most famous real life vampires was Mercy Brown, a young woman from 1800s Rhode Island who had died of tuberculosis and was believed to be preying on other members of her family as a vampire. Her body was found still containing some decayed blood. So the townspeople burned her heart and liver. They fed the ashes in water to her surviving brother, hoping it would protect him from the consumption.
That's probably not going to work.
So basically, they believed that this family dying from tuberculosis was withering away because their dead daughter was coming back and sucking their blood out.
That's cool. I mean, but did he die?
It's not going to work.
Did he die?
Is he dead?
Did you die? Were you there?
Dead?
Were you there?
None of us were.
Something Jessica Ventura says all the time. Were you there?
What about Typhoid Mary?
Oh yeah. Typhoid Mary.
She was kind of like imprisoned against her will. Like
Well, she's
that
the
would not be legal
well.
in today's days.
She was what you would call today a super spreader.
Well, or did it exist today? Like, or is this like, oh, that fucking guy over there has COVID. He farted the wrong way. Let's stay away from him. And that was Typhoid Mary in her day.
Well,
How do you test for that shit back then? By that it was over 100 years ago.
I don't know honestly, but they
How
said
did they determine that, like, someone, oh, you have this virus because we did a chemical analysis and threw it through a fucking lab? Like, no, you just have the symptoms. You're done. That's how I think they worked back then.
yeah, but supposedly, I guess everywhere she went, people got sick.
And that's their evidence. That's the thing. Like, but there's no like medical fucking nasal raping cavity thing like that they would do. Like, there's no way we could have like been able to scientifically determine that. Like, so that's what's funny to me about that, because like, oh, you knew her, you know, gave her fucking newspaper last week. Okay, you're done.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, cool
That's
story.
how it worked. That's how it
Story,
worked
bro.
back then.
Wait,
Cool,
but if
cool story, bro. Changed my life.
You sold her you sold some fucking a bag of oranges. You're done. You know.
if going places though is enough to convict you, like, okay, you went to this town and it spread, you're guilty. Then Jessica
But
Fletcher
it was only in
Jessica-
New York.
Jessica Fletcher should have been behind bars because there was a murder everywhere that old bitch went.
So should Kim Kardashian. All right. Like, I mean, what are we talking about here? Like,
I'm talking about Murder, She Wrote, and that old woman, everywhere she went, someone ended up dying.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or
Same-
Alex
same.
or what's her name? Alex Cahill from Walker, Texas Ranger. That bitch couldn't stay out of trouble to save her life.
No.
Every
And
episode.
neither could Eileen Warnos. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So anyway, you got anything else, Ben, on vampires or Vlad Dracula?
No, again, I think it's interesting, you know, that
This is cool how I can see like what you're scrolling. I don't know that technology, but you know, I can see what you're scrolling through.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
15 from around the world, interesting. No,
Oh,
look,
there you are on the next screen.
I think this one's a little unique because again, he you know, Stoker gave him the shape-shifting qualities, plus the blood sucking, plus, you know, the being defeated by light and the cross, which of course is strictly religious imagery. Other cultures did have blood-sucking demons, so
Well, plus having a kill-death ratio of like 80,000 to 1.
he was a nuclear bomb before they existed.
How much of that killing do you think he actually did personally?
Probably like a quarter of it. Like, I'm sure he probably derived gratification from like stabbing someone right through the eye with a dagger, like you see in fucking Braveheart, you know?
Yeah, something like that.
He probably did like a little smile, like a every time he like
Or
stabs.
he had the deer.
He did that before he got fucking executed, by the way.
Or he had the deer antlers. Like
Like he probably like just, damn, that was a good one. I enjoyed this. I mean,
let's do it again sometime.
Imagine if they had telephones back then. He'd be on the phone with the Pope.
Yo, you should have seen how I killed this one dude. Whoa.
He'd be telling the Pope, he'd be like, the Lord tells me he can get me out of this mess, but he's pretty sure you're fucked.
It's okay. I have a solution.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, like Millsy and I had a theory where basically all wars in the world, including obviously Vlad Dracul, were caused by rulers who had syphilis. because, you know,
Yes.
That's a real
Because of
possibility.
And I actually think that's the prevailing theory for us, and I think it's actually historically just true. Because like now look at with modern treatments of syphilis, there's virtually been no real like constant warfare in decades.
Yeah.
Hitler.
Yeah, he was.
Let's just like wind back the clock here. Let's start with Hitler. Who was before him? I'm asking you.
Me?
Who's before me?
Either or. Mason, let me fuck with Ben. Who was before Hitler who had syphilis? You know?
In terms of what? Like leadership or?
Yeah, like a country's leader. Who had syphilis? There was Hitler, then who before him?
I mean,
Are we talking?
Mussolini-
It wasn't
I'm pretty
Franz Ferdinand. No.
No, he was. Well, I mean, obviously you don't know the personal lives of these people, but yeah, I'm pretty sure like all the monarchs in Europe.
Who do we suspect?
Well, I mean, a lot of the monarchs in Europe were inbred and probably still are. So
Yes, exactamundo, brother.
inbreeding
we're
also
talking about.
breeds insanity. So I
Yeah,
mean, that's where the Mad King came from. He was an inbred swine as well.
how the hell do we know where the hell they fucking ended up in the rest of Europe? I mean, one of them could have been a little Hitler-et offspring.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's true, but Alex Jones says the royal family of England is descended directly from Vlad the Impaler.
I would not disagree.
Look, I mean, because look, the House of Windsor, remember, used to be like a Germanic house. I can't remember exactly what that house was called before it became Windsor, but it was a German. Damn it, someone help me out here. But you know, they were Germanic, so reason would have you believe that at some point, because Vlad Dracul did have descendants. One was actually, I believe, Vlad the Fourth, if I'm not mistaken. So the fact is, it's very easy to believe that at some point Romanian nobility married with some Germanic nobility that bled into the House of Windsor. Like that's completely possible.
Yep.
Same damn region of the world.
What he said. Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard also that what's her name? Angela Merkel, the former chancellor, and there in Germany, is a direct descendant of Hitler.
I mean, if he had children, I don't know who he had children with.
There's pictures, supposedly there's pictures of her with Hitler back in the day.
How old was she?
She was little. She was little.
Was she around in the 40s?
I don't know. I'm just saying, supposedly.
I mean, obviously,
Hitler was in his 40s when he was destroyed, so he had plenty of time to create that kind of shit.
No, I mean, according to this, she was born in 54.
Oh, I guess that can't be true then.
No, that was almost a decade later after this shit bought the fucking farm. Yeah.
Oh wait, but here she is meeting him in Argentina in the 50s.
But what if Hitler never died?
Yeah, they're on vacation in Seychelles.
Well, what if Hitler never died? What if he ended up in Argentina with the rest of the Nazis?
I know, that's what.
Must be growing some great weed.
Yeah. Maybe that's why the British went down there for the Falklands War.
Oh, they're making a killing. You have no idea. They didn't want those islands. Come on.
The German people were on vacation.
Everyone was on vacation. Sie haben a pizza in Deutschland.
There was some real sauerkraut.
That's the dev giveaway right there.
Yeah, all Germans were on vacation from 1939 to 1945.
Was that for the Family Guy episode?
Yeah, they were taking a tour of Germany. I think Munich.
Yeah, they're on the double-decker bus.
Can you tell us about that beer hall?
Hey, don't they speak like Dutch or something down there?
Who?
No, so Dutch is similar to German, but like it's like a combination of between French and German, which makes Flemish. Flemish is like the sort of language that they speak.
Flemish is wild.
The Netherlands. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I should know. That was the only first time I did mushrooms there.
Huh. I've
Well,
never-
aren't you part Dutch?
Who?
I thought you told
Dutch,
me you were part-
Italian, Austrian, and no Danish.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
close enough. Close enough. Yeah. That's my family.
So you're Austrian, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like,
Like, get back to the chopper.
Get down. Get down again.
come on, look what you're doing.
Dude, you know the movie True Lies?
Oh yeah.
That is my favorite Arnold movie of all time. Is True Lies. That's the
Yeah.
best one.
They got like a Soviet nuclear warhead sitting there. He's like, "Can you tell me what this is?" And he looks at it. And
This is a Merv 6,
he's like,
an A from an AN-22 launch
but
vehicle.
At first he's like, it's an
It's a snow cone maker.
espresso machine.
This is an espresso machine. No, I'm sorry. It's a snow cone maker. The way he says it too, it's like he's like trying to not be serious so bad. Anyway,
Yeah.
No, I have nothing else on our friend Vlad, though.
Yeah, me neither. We pretty well beat this horse to a bloody pulp. Nothing
We
left.
beat that. We beat that.
pun intended, bloody pulp.
Oh yeah. I shoved a big spike up his ass and roasting him on a spit right now.
Did enough blood come out?
Hey, do you guys mind just sticking around?
Yep.
Hey, Yuri, did you hear what I told the Turk bastard? Can you stick around? Ha ha ha. As people are screaming in the background in agony.
All right, so
Hey, Ben, trick question. Who is they?
Turks.
they
Tell him that later
Yeah,
offline.
offline. Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
go ahead.
their
Tell the
pronouns
good people.
were their pronouns were they and them.
Tell the good people where they can find us.
They
And
can.
if you want the links, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I don't have any links except for supernaturalbeerbros at gmail.com. That's the email. SBBpod on Instagram. That's pretty much it. You can find us anywhere, pretty much on all the major podcast platforms. If you want to listen to us bullshit for about an hour and a half, that'd be great. So, unless you guys got anything else, this
9. Yeah.
has been the Supernatural Beer Bros podcast, and we are signing out.